I'm here today with award winning recording artist, singer, songwriter, storyteller, activist, writer, Tift Merritt. And I'm so excited that you're speaking with me today. I'm really excited to chat with you. So
Well,
thank you.
I'm glad to be here and I'm glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah. So the first, sort of tenet that we're exploring is about finding your power. And that's, I think, a challenging thing. And I hope you don't mind. I have a little, this is actually like part of your writing. It's a little quote from a piece, a series that you're doing, Amps and Raisins, in the Oxford American. But there's this moment in one of the in one of the pieces of that series where you just had sort of a tough show in LA, and you were talking to your daughter Jean. And I hope you don't mind. Would you mind if I read a quote from
Oh,
that?
no, go ahead. That's
Okay.
fine.
Tiff says, "Sometimes, Jean, your job is to just stop thinking. Just make the leap of faith. Don't doubt. Don't question." I give her 4 Cheerios from a sippy cup. Sometimes "don't think" is the answer. One Cheerio makes her mouth, the rest fall into the car seat abyss. And then later you say, "Jean, just listen and give. That might be the whole shebang." So this section really spoke to me because I think one of the sort of challenges in this idea of like finding individual power is that there's this really tough navigation of like diving headfirst into your practice and into your passions, but also recognizing that you can't always give 100%. I was curious if you could talk to us a little bit about how you found the power to like navigate that balance of
Okay.
jumping into the deep end and stepping back.
Well, I really appreciate you connecting with that section. And I have a lot running through my mind in response to your question. But the first is just to say that all of that is a process that I am still deep at work in and on. And, um, thinking about listening and giving was always my modus operandi for being on the road and being a good musician, that you listen and give. And it's really the opposite of, I think, what happens, what it's really the opposite of what having the microphone in the spotlight usually is. Um, but I think it's such a, I think stepping into our power is a really interesting idea. I think as as women, especially women of my age, where we were taught to not be too much and not speak too loud and not make too big a mess, and um, but also remembering that like individual power is collective power, and that none of us is on an island all by ourselves without a lot of energy coming and going from us, and a lot to listen to and a lot to give. And I just think um, there are ways that we get shut down in this world, and sometimes it's because we're up against a person or a situation. But the main thing is to not shut yourself down, right? The main thing is don't shut yourself down, and to have some mechanisms in place to tap into what is noise and what really you have to follow through with and you can't let go of. And so, I
Mhm.
can use the idea of being on the road and being mom and being spent and feeling like not enough and feeling like I didn't have a good show and letting it kind of spiral
Mhm.
into some not true truth about myself. And what I would say to myself, and not not always successfully, is like, that is not my job. My job is to listen and to give.
Mhm.
because that's really the heart of what a musician does and what a writer does and what a mom does. And I think at the end of the day, I believe in process and experience as our
Mhm.
truest teachers, and you follow your instincts without anger and gently and with kindness, and you can grow and build confidence from yourself. You kind of earn respect from yourself at the same time that you are earning it from the world, and that process doesn't feel quite as dangerous or foreign as like I'm supposed to step into my power and I don't know how.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah,
make
no,
sense?
absolutely. No, totally. And then what about like where do you where does I'm really curious about the power that comes from, making the decision to do other things and to kind of step into new projects because I know you just have such a diverse like set of skills and you do so much and I'm just curious how kind of like stepping off of that traditional recording artist path like how did you kind of come to that decision and where did that strength come from?
That's so kind of you to point that out. I just want to make very clear that, first of all, I came to that out of my feelings about my daughter.
Hmm.
And I have never fit very neatly into the music world, but I could remain in the music world without fitting very neatly into it. Is kind of not that rewarding, but I could do it. But I
Hmm.
couldn't raise my daughter on the road. That was not what I was going to do. But stepping back from that life, it also felt a lot like a failure on my part. That if I had been more successful as a recording artist, if I had had a couple of buses and a couple of nannies and more people come see me every night, that it would have been okay and I would have been able to keep going. Now, that was kind of a joke that I told myself because I don't want to raise Jean on a bus either. And those were a couple of really hard years reinventing and saying, what should I be doing? How can I go from a recording artist to a project based artist?
Hmm.
And that was really what the conversion was.
Hmm.
What I found and didn't know that I would find is that I am experiencing a much richer creative canvas now that is much more satisfying to where what all of the things that I want to do, what is not held in, um, a 3 minute song, what is not held in the curation of the top 40, what is not held in the normal expectations for what a girl singer should be. I now have built a place where I can give more and in more diverse ways and be received and met in more diverse ways too. So it's been a big surprise, but it's been really rewarding. And that was definitely a case of stop thinking, jump, well, or start thinking, but knowing that I had to jump into something and having to really trust the world and myself and my kind of uncertainty
Hmm.
muscle, and it just has been really rewarding and surprising.
Absolutely, yeah. That's so interesting and I think that like brings us perfectly to kind of our next thing that we are interested in which is like this idea of people using their voice and obviously as a storyteller and as a singer songwriter everything you do is you have just a really incredible voice and it's so intimate and so unique and I was just wondering if you could kind of reflect on what it's meant to you or how you've developed that voice and how you've maintained it as your own because I know that's also important to you um, because I think that's something that a lot of people that's a hard thing to to put themselves out there and to feel comfortable using.
Oh, that's so kind, and it's always been important to me. I mean, all of
Mhm.
my sort of artist mentors and when I say that, I'm like, they don't come visit me and I don't talk to them, but their work is
Yeah.
a guiding part of my life. They are all really masters of of voice, like unique point
Mhm.
of view, and
Mhm.
looking at the world in a different way. And I like to make little worlds in sharp detail.
Mhm.
Keener, hold on, my daughter's calling.
That's
Say
fine.
hi. You want to say hi to my friend? Mom, no, Mama. Uh-huh.
Hi.
No,
Hi, Jean.
Mama, we're going to the park. And which way is to the park? Find it. Okay. Call me if you need me, okay? Okay, is it this way? That way, and then back that way. Yeah, I think I know. You know. And you can ask anybody on the way. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I like to build specific worlds in sharp
Mhm.
detail out of the overlooked and the everyday. And
Mhm.
I think I arrived at that through many years.
Mhm.
Um, and I always have wanted to have an emotional intimacy in my work, which doesn't mean that it's always at a whisper, but it's always, real. And I think developing your own voice goes hand in hand with trying to be your own best editor,
Mhm.
and trying to really have an awareness about what you do well and what gives you energy, and how to employ that,
Mhm.
and in a way that's a kind of listening.
Mhm.
But I also think it's um, really important in finding your own way and making your own voice to listen to that instinct that you have that's not going the same way that everybody else is.
Mhm.
And rather than taking that and saying, that's really inconvenient, and I want the map that everybody else has, and I wish I got that, but I didn't, and I keep getting pulled that way, and I can't explain why, and it's making me feel confused. You have, that's your voice calling.
Mhm.
And you have to, I can't tell you how many times I've thrown my hands up and gone, if only you didn't show up and drag me this way, I could have gone with everybody else right over there. But no.
Yeah.
And yet, what, what a, what a, I owe everything to that little voice as much as I just gave it a hard time. So I would say, we usually react to that like, oh no, and we freeze up and pretend we're invisible and try to go with everybody else and be who we are supposed to be. And really, that's a really sacred moment where something is showing up and saying, you see something different and you need to follow that thread.
Yeah. And has it been challenging to maintain this as your own and, keep this true to yourself throughout your career?
Well, I mean, I think I would say that I'm 46 years old now, and I'm at a point in my life. I mean, I'm not trying to evoke trouble or jinx anything, but I think when you collect experiences and you've kind of made things that tell people who you are enough that people can think about it that way, that's just a nicer place to be than when you're 25 and you don't have a track record and you don't have as many experiences backing up your instincts. So yes, it's been difficult and not profitable and misunderstood and all of those things. But I can usually say that the people that I wanted to understand what I was doing understood it. The people who didn't understand it really weren't serving my path or my vision or whatever it was, and they didn't need to understand it. The people that really I wanted to get what I was doing got it. And those are the people that are going to help keep you in that place rather than shaking you up and asking you to make gigantic corrections which throw you off your path.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also had things when I was younger that I don't have now, which is like an extraordinary sense of certainty about things that I mean, we all have a different set of tools at different times, but
Yeah.
absolutely it is not easy to choose independence or go against the grain, or when someone's saying you're supposed to do this, why are you doing that? I mean, um I'm a team player. I like to be a nice person. I don't I I I am not out looking for conflict. Um, and I certainly have felt like I didn't live up to some kind of expectation that the world had of me, while maybe in another way allowing to to really become who was outside of that expectation, and that's much more important. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, I mean, it's and that's why you need mentors and teachers and friends who really see you and um, share a vision and an integrity and can help you find words when you don't have them, and or words before you have them, that really are going to fill you with energy and keep you going the right way, and not say, hey, you're barking up the wrong tree and you should be somebody else. That,
Yeah.
and
No, that's
and all of the
absolutely.
things that we love, like books and art, and they'll fill you in those moments too. They'll help all of that be clear inside.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So I know that, you know, from everything you've said and everything I know about you, that like obviously listening is just this really important component of like your practice and everything you do. And you have this incredible project called The Spark where you interview fellow artists about their processes and sort of like their means of creation. And I'm just curious to hear from you why is it so important for you to engage with other artists? How is that like an extension of
It
that's to me that seems like an extension of your voice and who you are, but I'm just curious if you could touch on that.
it is an extension of me, and me seeking people who are doing what I am trying to do, and oftentimes doing it better. And, I think early on, about 5 years into my career, I just realized that I was having conversations about my work that were um, not really of depth. I mean, like, I don't know, it's not a hit. I don't know, something about the band. And I thought, I went through this incredible writing program where my mentor would never allow that to be the feedback that I received or that I gave someone. You always had to really go inside a work and say something of meaning. And I also noticed that I wasn't around other artists. I was in a van. I was in a backstage by myself, um, and that this the conversations that I was having as a working artist were mostly when the spotlight was on me or when the spotlight was on somebody else, and it was always framed in a marketing capacity that had sprung forth
Hmm.
perfectly formed out of nowhere, an act of genius. And first and foremost, that's not true. But secondly, it's not interesting. And most work of intricacy in this world, there is a space where the process is happening, and I think we need to clear a place for that part of artistry making things, making meaning, to have as much or more of of the conversation than this spotlight, which is kind of, it's way less interesting. So it's just me making a place for those process conversations that I can't have enough, because it keeps you on track. And you go touch base with someone else's process and you're like, wow, it reinvigorates your own. It teaches you something about your own uncertainties, and it reminds you why dedicating yourself with a lot of love to a purpose is a wonderful thing. So, um, to me, it's like graduate school.
I love that. That's awesome. And okay, so this is actually like my last question. And because, following along in our theme, we're really curious to hear how people think about changing the world, or at least changing their world, or changing the things around them. So how do you kind of approach that in your, do you, and it's okay, like I personally think it's absolutely fine if you don't go into your projects thinking, how am I gonna change people or change their perceptions?
Oh,
Because
oh
I don't
yeah,
think
no,
that's
I
always
would never do
necessary.
that. I'm a Southern woman, and I'm not allowed to do that. And and I also think it's really, like, humility is such an important part. And and I'm not saying crippling ourselves so that we don't use our voices to
Hmm.
do good things. But I never begin something saying, um, I feel the presumption to make the world a better place, and I how.
Yeah.
I I usually feel, like a gap or a need, like, why is nobody talking about that, or why
Yeah.
isn't there a song about that, or this is, this itch, and then I want to go to it, and kind of pour attention on it.
Hmm.
And I think about it. Sometimes I'll talk about writing or writing music as I just spend time with my instruments. I just give attention to this relationship the way that I would anything or anyone that I loved. And I think that's just a really grounded, a way to ground it all. And I think when I think about the other projects, um, that I work on, then it's really like I want to spend time with that question, or I want to spend time with
Hmm.
that space, or I want to spend time, you know, in this set of circumstances, and care for it or give it my attention, which attention is kind of like, really heartfelt attention is definitely very a loving thing.
Hmm.
And kind of see what comes out of that. And I don't necessarily think at all about changing the world.
Yeah.
I do not want to put noise in the world. I do not want to put pictures of myself looking cool in the world. I think that's easy. But most of what I'm doing generates from wanting to build, um, a meaningful life for myself and a meaningful space for my daughter, and a world that will take care of her when I'm not here to. So,
Mhm.
and I don't mean that in a selfish way. Like, I
No,
want Jean to be set up. I mean, that's not what it
yeah.
is. It's like I want her to live in a good world. And
Hmm.
so, um, I'm just a big believer in following your heart and leading with love. And I usually that's the not that much else matters.
Yeah.
Tank
And-
to
yeah.
to to give more here in my office and out in the world. And
Hmm.
I think we've all been through a lot in this past year, but
Hmm.
we can come away with, there is a lot of good here. There's
Yeah.
a lot of good here, and there are a lot of people paying attention to it and
Hmm.
trying to get the world on the right track. And
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for you for spending time and for hearing me and meeting me and taking the time to ask me questions about what I'm doing. That's a form of love too.